My name is Sharon Gabe Helfer. I have created this slideshow and associated materials as a contribution to peace, to the building and perpetuation of peace, a process that begins within each of us, that each of us can cultivate as a path towards insight and liberation for ourselves personally, and then in our families, our communities, and the world. Many others have devoted and are devoting their lives and energies to the cause of peace. And there are many useful tools available for peace building. Compassionate listening is among these tools. It is the one highlighted here. Simple, powerful, challenging. In November 2015, in the midst of the stabbing intifada, I joined a delegation of 19 people from the USA, Canada, and Britain. We traveled to different locations in Israel and the West Bank with the goal of listening to the peacemakers. We were Jews, Christians, and one staunch atheist. During our 2-week journey, we became close through the intimacy and intensity of training, listening, and traveling together. I interviewed each of these people for half an hour to an hour at the outset of our journey, and again for about 10 minutes as an outtake at the end. So I know very well that each of these people has his or her own reasons for coming on the trip. Reasons having to do with their backgrounds, their values, their professional and or personal engagements and paths, no two the same. You can hear these final interviews by opening the Our Group tab on this website and clicking on one of these beautiful faces. Right now, I would like to tell you about why I chose to go. About a year ago, my sister-in-law and her husband came to visit from Sweden. Ever since marrying a Swedish Jew and getting to know Stockholm's Jewish community, I've admired the closeness of this community, the level of their Jewish awareness and education, their involvement with Israel and with each other. However, in recent years, life for Jews in Sweden has become more difficult. For example, the wonderful summer camp that all the Jewish kids used to go to, where they bonded and learned together, had recently to cancel an event because they couldn't guarantee the safety of the children. As we listened to one depressing story after another, the mood sunk ever lower. Then suddenly, somebody mentioned Siavosh Derkati, known as Sia was born in Malmö, southern Sweden, where the most intense anti-Semitic incidents have been occurring. His Iranian immigrant parents, part of the Turkish-Azerbaijani minority, escaped Iran during the Iran-Iraq War, seeking a safer life in Scandinavia. Having been part of a discriminated against minority in Iran, Derkati's father wanted to teach his son about the evils of discrimination and persecution. He first took Sia to Bergen-Belsen when he was 13 and to Auschwitz when he was 15. Sia's activism began as a high school project. He went to the Swedish Education Department himself and secured funding to bring 27 of his fellow high school students to Auschwitz. In 2010, when he was 19, Sia founded Young Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, which has now expanded to become Young People Against Anti-Semitism and Xenophobia. Hearing about this courageous, gorgeous young man bursting with life, choosing such an amazing path, was a complete mood changer. From feeling my heart in the gutter, my mood changed completely, and I was filled with a sense of the positive and of possibility. I said to myself, I need more of this. I need to find out how to fill myself with positive examples so that I can feel them, know them, be inspired by them, share them, and be part of creating something good. So it was that when the November 2015 Compassionate Listening trip to Israel and the West Bank was announced, billed as Listening to the Peacemakers, I said to myself, I'm going. The Compassionate Listening Project teaches skills for peacemaking. Project founder Leah Green and her associates had the insight that the conversations necessary for peacemaking cannot happen until opposing sides in a conflict are able to listen to and hear each other. This requires listening deeply, not interrupting, listening with the heart, and then, when speaking, speaking from the heart. This way we can help each other and ourselves to reach the deeper truths, insights, questions, and wisdom we each carry within. One of the major activities of the Compassionate Listening Project is to organize and send delegations into conflict areas, initially but not only Israel and Palestine, to listen to people from all sides. Here you can see some of the people we listened to. These include an Israeli former government minister and ambassador, a Hamas-affiliated former mayor of Beit Umar, a young settler from the Tekoa settlement 5 miles south of Bethlehem, a yoga teacher from the Bethlehem-adjacent Christian Arab village of Beit Jala. We were also welcomed overnight in the Al-Arub refugee camp and spent another night in the Bedouin village of Lakia. One of the hopes I personally carried in going to listen to the peacemakers was to learn from the creativity and resilience of people on the ground. I wanted to witness and then to carry with me the strength that allows people to construct positive paths forward in the midst of violent situations. My goal was and is to become a worthy partner for peace. It has always bothered me that both sides in this conflict claim that they want peace, but unfortunately there was no one to talk to. The other side does not want peace. I have been asking myself, how easy is it really to be a true partner for peace? Can I be such a partner? If I am not that person now, how can I become that person? In addition to my desire to be nourished by positive examples, I also had 2 critical questions in mind. As someone who has been compelled by dialogue for just over 20 years now, I needed to know, is dialogue still a good idea? Is it a good idea in this context, where people are coming from such different places, geographically, politically, emotionally, where one party is strong and the other is weak in terms of political power? Is there any point in still trying to dialogue, or are we just setting ourselves up for disappointment, disillusionment, frustration, bitterness, and anger? My second question, and what about this compassionate listening idea? As something of an academic these past 20 years, talking with or from the heart has not been part of the core vocabulary. So, does this stuff make sense? Especially where I'm going, heading out onto a landscape littered with broken hearts. So many people have had so many hopes and have tried so hard, and have been let down so many times. Am I really going to go and speak the language of the heart there? I didn't know whether I would find the inspiring people I had hoped to find, but I did. We all did. Today I would like to share 6 of their stories. I will read out in the first person short summary texts that convey the stories these people told us. Here is an overview just to give a sense of the places we traveled to. As each speaker begins, there will be a map showing where he or she lives. Sia was born in Malmö, southern Sweden, where the most intense anti-Semitic incidents have been occurring. His Iranian immigrant parents, part of the Turkish-Azerbaijani minority, escaped Iran during the Iran-Iraq War, seeking a safer life in Scandinavia. Having been part of a discriminated against minority in Iran, Derkati's father wanted to teach his son about the evils of discrimination and persecution. He first took Sia to Bergen-Belsen when he was 13 and to Auschwitz when he was 15. Sia's activism began as a high school project. He went to the Swedish Education Department himself and secured funding to bring 27 of his fellow high school students to Auschwitz. In 2010, when he was 19, Sia founded Young Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, which has now expanded to become Young People Against Anti-Semitism and Xenophobia. Hearing about this courageous, gorgeous young man, bursting with life, choosing such an amazing path, was a complete mood changer. From feeling my heart in the gutter, my mood changed completely, and I was filled with a sense of the positive and of possibility. I said to myself, I need more of this. I need to find out how to fill myself with positive examples so that I can feel them, know them, be inspired by them, share them, and be part of creating something good. So it was that when the November 2015 Compassionate Listening trip to Israel and the West Bank was announced, billed as Listening to the Peacemakers, I said to myself, I'm going. Yafo, to the sea, to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, any place, tell me. Today I'm here for you with my car. I said, I heard about the Holocaust, about the Yad Vashem Museum in Israel. Can you drive me there? He said, are you sure? I said, yes, I'm sure. I don't need to go to the sea or to Al-Aqsa. We went to Yad Vashem because I believe that to deal with others, you need to know about them. Try to know about them. And because if you don't know about me, you cannot deal with me. My name is Tally Goodfriend. I was born the youngest of 9 siblings in Florida in the USA. But I grew up and my soul came into being in the desert, in the Arava region of southern Israel. I was 5 years old when my family moved there, driven by the passion of my father to found a utopian settlement in Israel, to make the desert bloom, hasten the redemption of the world, and to achieve world peace by doing concrete good actions. I grew up in a tent with no electricity or running water. One of my best playmates was a Wad, a Palestinian Bedouin boy exactly my age who lived nearby. His mother, Fraza, was my Bedouin mother, and I loved her, laughed with her, learned from her. As I grew into a young woman, I found the religious requirements imposed by my father upon my siblings and me to be unduly harsh and restrictive, and then impossible. I left the family, struck out on my own. Then my sisters followed me out, and the family fell apart. I eventually came to Montreal with my husband and children to get a profession, to study and find myself, but the painful rupture in my family remained. Perhaps it was my strong inbred desire for world peace that led me to seek my own repair, and then to reach out to my family to heal the wound my departure had caused. I returned to Israel to see the family. It was a first step, but the fear, mistrust, and suspicion remained deep and strong. I met with my young brother Ari in Jerusalem, and we made a pact to continue to work to bring our family back together. Then I returned to Montreal, to my family and my life. 8 months later, I received a phone call at work from the Israeli embassy in Ottawa. There had been a suicide bombing in Israel, and my brother Ari was among those who died. This tragedy ripped me apart and shook our family to the core. How to deal with the anger, the grief, the pain of losing my sweet young brother. It took me years. I returned to school, to advanced studies in art, believing that somehow through the creative process I might find healing. I also sought counseling. By making my brother Ari the subject of my master's thesis, I was able to take the time to delve deeply into my emotions, to think of him and how he died and what it all could possibly mean. In the end, my path towards liberation from all the negative emotions came through my attempt to reach out in my imagination, to understand my brother's murderer. In the process of doing this, I wrote a short play, 9 minutes long, in which I imagined a meeting between my brother and his killer. Each one tells his own story, tells it to the other, who listens, with difficulty, but who listens. The divergent truths of their intersecting lives come out. And then I imagine that they find common ground on the territory that unites them both young men from a land and culture that they, in so many ways, share. Museum in Israel. Can you drive me there? He said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yes, I'm sure. I don't need to go to the sea or to Al-Aqsa. We went to Yad Vashem because I believe that to deal with others, you need to know about them. Try to know about them. And because if you don't know about me, you cannot deal with me. My name is Roni Kadar. I'm married with 5 children and 16 grandchildren. I'm originally from England. My parents came to live in Israel when I was a child, driven by a small anti-Semitic incident in London. I would like to tell you how I got to this place, to this moshav, or agricultural community, Nativ Ha'asara, and to this place in terms of my perspective and commitment to peace. This moshav did not always sit where it is now, right on the border with northern Gaza, across from Beit Hanun. Nativ Ha'asara was first established in 1972, with technical support from my husband, in the Sinai Desert, across from Gaza's southern border. My husband is an Egyptian-born agriculturalist with degrees from Hebrew University. He is fluent in Arabic. After the 1967 war, he was asked to go to the Gaza Strip and northern Sinai to introduce modern methods of agriculture. He saw great potential in the area and said to me, "Come on, let's go live there ourselves." And that's how he brought a city girl from London to work in agriculture in the Sinai Desert. But then in 1979, there was a peace treaty with Egypt. In exchange for peace, Sinai was returned to Egypt. Nativ Ha'asara, together with Yamit and the other Israeli-built villages in the Sinai, had to be evacuated. This created a very strong conflict for us. We all longed for peace, but on the other hand, we did not want to be evacuated from our homes, to uproot our plantations, to lose all we had worked to build up. But when we realized that it was either peace or staying in northern Sinai, it was obvious what we should do. Our community then moved here, across the border, but as close as possible to our original site. When we had almost finished building our new home, the government approached my husband again and asked him to go to Egypt, said that his skills were required there. My husband said Egyptians evacuated him from his home twice. First was in 1956, when Nasser sent all the Jewish people out of Egypt. My husband's family had to get out with just a suitcase, to leave behind their successful factory, their beautiful holiday resort and home, their nice bank account. Everything was taken from them. Then, in 1982, we were evacuated because of Egypt for the sake of peace. But now, despite our initial misgivings, we thought, if we can make a contribution to peace by going to Egypt, even if it's a drop in the sea, we should go ahead. During our 4+ years in Egypt, our children learned and we learned a lot about people we really had known nothing about. For years until then, I had known one side of the story, the Israeli side, the diaspora, the Holocaust, the establishment of Israel as a Jewish state. But all of a sudden, I am hearing another side of this story. I hear another narrative of this history. The same dates, the same events, but seen in a different perspective. Neither of us is lying. We're both telling our own truths. When we returned to Nativ Ha'asara, I thought, we are never going to be here in Israel, in Palestine, one instead of the other. So let's put down our arms and start working at a way to live together. I should add that when we first came here, everything was very normal. Many of the people from Gaza came to work with us. We used to go to visit them, and they came to visit us. Until the mid-90s, when things started changing. Suicide bombers with explosive trucks blowing up in the middle of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and many other parts of the country coming out of Gaza. Every time this happened, the border would be closed. No one was allowed in or out. You never knew when. Even now when I'm talking to you, I can't be 100% sure that there won't be an alarm at a certain point in our meeting. We know that if a rocket hits, there's no hope. For example, one day one of the girls in our village was coming home. She got out of the car, heard an alarm. She started running into the house, and on the doorstep she was hit directly by a rocket. She happened to be my daughter's best friend. And so I asked myself, why don't we do anything, really do anything, to stop that next round, so we don't have to reach that next round? In 2009, I met people from Other Voice, people with different political affiliations, but in total agreement that talking is more powerful than violence. Violence is not the answer. It's not getting us anywhere, and we can prove it over the years. Dialogue is, and we have many friends in Gaza who think the same way we do. We connect over the phone, Skype, Facebook. I am really a very shy person, except for this. As long as I can, I am going to speak out. I go abroad and speak a lot, and I speak a lot here. I'm one person. There are many more like me, but we are still very few. We are still not enough and not in the right places. We're trying to get there. 10 of my grandchildren live here in the village. I don't want them to go on living this way. I've got to teach them to live not in fear, not act out of fear and hate. I know it sounds very bombastic, but love is so important. My name is Ilda Zagmut. My family are Palestinian Christians from Bethlehem. In 1967, my father said our family had to leave Bethlehem. They sought refuge in Amman, Jordan, where I was born and grew up. After the Oslo Peace Accords in 1993, family reunification became possible. This was a dream for us, as all the rest of our family are here. We came in 1999, 1 year before the Second Intifada. It was shocking for us to go from freedom to occupation, to see all the things that Palestinians go through daily. The first uprising had been focused primarily on nonviolent means, and had achieved some recognition for Palestinians. However, as the years wore on, people became fed up with the peace process. There was no progress. During the Second Intifada, people turned to violence. I don't believe that violence is the answer. I think it takes more courage to be involved in nonviolence, more patience. It is not easy. It takes a long time to see results, and it is exhausting. Nonetheless, I resist the occupation through nonviolence. But this is not my final goal. How can we be sure that we will be ready to rule and govern ourselves when the occupation does end? My way is through yoga, mindfulness, community building, and community work, to strengthen and nourish our core as individuals and as a Palestinian society. When my children were young, thanks to a supportive husband, I was able to get my yoga teacher's license through the Olive Tree Yoga Foundation. In January 2015, together with Nimala Haroufe, I opened Beit Ashams. My parents live on the second floor, and have helped us to fulfill our dream. When life is a constant rotation of checkpoints, blockades, bombings, and uncertainty regarding what lies ahead, practices like yoga and meditation can help people to deal with the stress and give them back a sense of control. We do many things here: yoga, meditation, aikido, sound healing, and other practices that bring healing, light, and hope into people's lives. The room we are meeting in is called the Horizons Room, where we have a small library of books on the practices that are taught here, where people can sit quietly, enjoy a free cup of coffee, read, and broaden their horizons. Beside us is the Being Room, where we teach yoga, meditation, and so on. Right now, a mixed group of Muslim and Christian women are doing yoga. Our third room is called Creative Exploration. It is a kitchen where our children use all their senses to create and explore. I can give you a couple of examples of what we do. One thing is working with kids and music. We bring together special needs kids, Down syndrome kids, and regular kids. The teacher is deaf-mute, and the children create music from anything. We learn sign language and to sing. We have learned colors, fruits, and vegetables. Recently, we had a training for a group of Reiki practitioners. The teacher is an Irish Catholic American. Participants were Christians and Muslims from different denominations. The prayer we began with was amazing, everyone praying from their own faith. It was beautiful. There is an essence of spirituality in each religion, and in Reiki I felt the purity of each spirituality. We share from the heart. You ask what I hope you would learn from this, to take home and communicate. My invitation is to listen with an open heart, to hear people's stories, otherwise you will never get it. This is a land that is not easy to understand. I think it is important to hear the narrative of a people. This you will not see in the news. The situation we are going through is very hard. To me, any violence is unacceptable. But it is important to understand when people act violently, why they are doing it. I ask myself, how hopeless and desperate must these kids be to become involved in violence? In fact, many of them were not stabbing or using knives, but being victims of suspicion, they are shot. I know you are interested in dialogue. I believe that the Palestinian community is not ready to meet the Israeli community right now. It's not just saying, let's meet, let's just meet and talk. I might be offered a chance to go to Jerusalem for a dialogue. This could be a great opportunity for me because we need permission to go to Jerusalem. So I might say, sure, it's a good chance to go to the sea. But that is not enough. If you look at all of the joint activities that have been organized over the past 10 to 15 years, the results have not been what people dreamed of. Cycles of violence have continued. People meet, but when they go back to their communities, they return to their comfort zones and don't want to change. When we meet, we want to make a change. Not to go back with more hatred or more anger at not being heard, maybe. We need to meet on a different level. We, as Palestinians, have homework to do, and the Israelis on their side have homework to do. When the time comes, both of us together will make a change. For this to happen, the intention has to be different. For everybody to meet on a different level, both sides must want to listen deeply and to understand. Then the intention becomes different. And that's where we can make a change. My name is Tiferet Weinberg. I'm not exactly like the other speakers you have been listening to. Your visit here was not planned long in advance, and I haven't prepared what I'm going to say. Pretty much all I know is that your group is called Compassionate Listening, which sounds amazing, and I know that you're interested in the conflict here in Israel. I guess the reason you specifically came to see me is that I went through an attack almost 2 weeks ago. I can tell you about that. And then, I guess like every Israeli, I live with the conflict every day of my life. So you can ask me anything. But maybe first I'll tell you something about myself. I'm almost 21 years old. I've just come back from doing 2 years national service and a 3rd year doing art in the Golan Heights. Now I'm back here living with my family in the wonderful, diverse community of Tekoa, where Orthodox Jews of different sorts live together with secular Israelis. It's a yeshuv, what you guys maybe call a settlement. I'm a student, studying art therapy and behavioral sciences, and also Jewish studies at the Nishmat Yeshiva for Women in Jerusalem. As well, I've just started a business as a hairdresser, a hair artist doing hair for events, and it's going really well. A passion that I have is that I'm a counselor at Camp Kobe Mandel. It's a camp for kids who have lost someone from their immediate family because of terror. It was started after Rabbi Seth and Sherry Mandel's oldest son, Kobe, was killed at age 13. The Mandels realized what people go through in those circumstances and wanted to help others. I've been a counselor there for 7 years now, since I was 15 or 16. It's amazing working there. One important thing is that these people who have suffered such terrible losses have each other. They know terror. It's affected their whole lives and families. They don't feel weird. They don't have to explain. Working at the camp, I have come to understand how huge each person's loss is. We can't imagine how much pain there is, how much they have to deal with. Every time there is something on the news, you can't really get how big it is to imagine the boyfriend of the girl or the father of the little kid. You can't grasp it. Working there helps me grasp it more, helps me understand that I can't understand. Working at the camp also helps me not to judge. As people, we want to do the right thing. We want peace. We want to make things better in the world. I hope that's our natural desire. But now I understand that sometimes you have the right just to feel the pain. For a family that's recently lost someone, to jump up and start talking, negotiating, it's hard to put their pain aside. I would not expect people to put it aside. I don't think it's the kind of thing you can expect from everyone. I guess I was one of the lucky ones after what happened to me 2 weeks ago. It's still pretty recent, and I'll need more time to really know how this experience has affected me. Here's what happened. I was driving home for Shabbat with my neighbor. She's 16, and we were on the main highway just here. And a car in front of us was driving, and they threw a grenade out of their window onto the road. I didn't really notice that it was a grenade. My first instinct was to think, that is so weird. It looks like a fruit, but it's black. And then automatically I moved the car so it would have to go between the wheels. It didn't blow up, so that was really a miracle. And then they slowed down to see what was going on, and that was really the scariest part. They slowed down, and I also slowed down. But I didn't want to come too close to them, and I also didn't want to stop, because it didn't feel very safe to stop there. After a few minutes, we were both going really slow, and then they zoomed off. But as the army people told us, if we had stopped and they had gotten too close, it would not have been good. I live in Israel and I love Israel. I love the land. I love hiking here, every single stone. I love the land and I love the people. But I also love that it's a Jewish state. I feel like it's who I am. Palestinians who live here, even if they have citizenship, it's not their identity to say, I'm part of a Jewish state. If I would put myself in their shoes for a bit, I think it's tough. You're looked upon with fear or suspicion because of where you come from, who you are. You're living in a state which is not who you are. I feel like, wow, that's not fun. I try to be aware because I know you might hurt someone if you're not really sensitive. You ask whether I would consider joining a dialogue between Palestinians and Israelis. I'm 100% not against it. I just don't know yet. Right now, part of me does not want to make this a huge part of my life. So many friends and people I know have been hurt by the conflict. It's difficult to put that aside. As well, there are some things each of us feels strongly about, that this is my thing, this is who I am, where I can make a difference. For me, working in the camp is like that. You ask what I hope for my children when I have them. I hope that my kids won't have to be taken aback when they see a Palestinian, that they won't have that warning sign in their head because of experiences they went through, won't have that feeling. Same thing for the other side. I hope they won't see hatred. They won't feel that someone does not like them or does not want them to be alive and well and living where they want to live. I hope things are good.